So we are on a canning and preserving kick really this summer. I'm showing you different ways to can, how I use my produce, what I use. So a big one for my family growing up was the day we froze corn. We never canned corn. My grandma would always do that when she was growing up. It's a little bit more of a process. You have to put like citric acid with it and other things just to keep its color, and I don't really like it as well. Frozen corn, delicious. It tastes just like the summer. It's much easier. You have to put nothing with it at all. No preservative, no salt, anything. So it was always a big day, and we used to can like over 200 pints. I'm not joking. This is different. We're gonna downsize it. We're gonna show you how it can be done for any size. You can do a couple pint, you can do a few bags, whatever you want. So here I have cleaned, husked, and washed corn. This is what we grow here on our farm. It's honestly, you can go buy it at a market, you can do whatever you want. I cut off any of the bad spots, so a lot of the tops can start maybe either getting eaten by bugs or something. So you just cut them off, and if there's any bad spots anywhere, you cut them off. Now, the best way I find to do this is just to take it over to the stove and start cooking it. You can probably cook it whatever way you like, but for us, it's always 5 minutes boiling water and that's it. It's kind of pretty much a blanching process is what we're gonna do. Because then after those 5 minutes, we're gonna plunge it right into ice water. Big pot, so you can do a lot at once, but honestly, a small pot works great too, because the bigger the pot, the longer it takes to get back up to boiling, so don't feel like you have to do it all at once. I'm gonna do about 2 batches here. So that's about half. I'm gonna put the lid on, let it come back to a boil, time it for 5 minutes, and we're done. Okay, so this has boiled for 5 minutes. I'm gonna just remove it all. See how, oh, I love this. It gets that nice, bright, beautiful color. This is just, you know, sweet corn in the summer. This is why you preserve, because if you get sweet corn, you know, sometimes you see it in the store at like an odd time of year, like maybe during the winter. Where are they shipping that from? I don't know. It's not gonna taste that good because it's not gonna be when it's ripe and when it's fresh. Like even if you buy it at your local market right now, guys, it is just getting picked, so it is that fresh, delicious, sweet, and has such a good corn flavor even, so this is why you preserve it. You get it when it's at its freshest, you preserve it, and then it tastes its freshest whenever you get it out of the freezer. I have so many people that they don't put a lot away, that they just like, they guard it and they only use it on special occasions, maybe whether it's like Christmas or Thanksgiving, any of the holidays. Now, we had so much growing up, I admit, it became just kind of passé. So I'm gonna actually put my second batch in here so I can be doing those. I think at home, growing up, when we used to do so much, which by the way, we don't do near as much anymore, we would have like 4 kettles going, all at different times. It was a whole thing. So I'm gonna bring this over to the sink. It's hot, it's very hot. And what I'm gonna do to start is I'm gonna put it here in like a colander, and I'm just gonna start getting the chill off, I'm gonna start putting cold water on it to get a little bit of that initial heat off. So that's why I'm saying it's like a blanching process. So we're just gonna sit here and kind of try to stop the cooking with some cold water. And then I'm gonna take this container here that I had it in, and I'm gonna actually sit it in cold water for a little bit just to draw out some of that heat. And then we're gonna put it into ice water. If you put it into ice water right away without kind of taking off some of that initial heat from it, it just makes the ice melt right down and doesn't really get cold. So you wanna take off some of that initial heat just for a little bit here. So while that's sitting like that, I'm gonna actually just fill up my sink with cold water. I freeze big chunks of ice just in any container you have. You can use cubes too. I'll probably end up using both. But what's nice about chunks of ice is they melt a little bit slower than other things do. So let's fill that up, get it nice and cold down in there, and then we're gonna start chilling the corn. So I have the water coming in here. The initial heat is kind of taken off of this corn. I'm gonna just plunge it right into this ice water. This is, I think, if the whole takeaway from this is the most important step. This is gonna seem kind of like, okay, you're cooling it, big deal, let it sit a little bit. No, You want it extremely cold throughout the cob before you cut it off. This was grandma's, this is mom's big thing. If you cut it off when there is still warmth in that cob, it's not gonna keep near as well. It's not gonna go bad in the freezer, but it's not gonna have the fresh flavor. You wanna stop all cooking, no residual heat. It's gonna be much fresher, keep much better, and taste amazing. So this is important. It is gonna sit in here for long enough, and it could take 15, 20 minutes. Like when I pick these up and bring them out of the water, there is still definitely heat in there. Instantly they're getting warm because there was so much heat cooking them. So they're gonna sit in the ice. You can add ice cubes, you can buy a bag of ice, whatever you need to do to get that done. So we're gonna let them sit, we're gonna let them get cold, get the other ones out of the hot water when they're done. So you're probably wondering, well, how do you know when it's ready? That's a great question. I never really know either. So the best way, let it sit longer. Obviously it's gonna be colder, but to just pull one out and then cut a little bit of corn off, because this is what we're gonna do here in a minute. And when you cut that corn off, you're exposing the cob, and that is where the warmth would be. So this is what grandma would always do. Either touch it with your finger, which that's the most safe way. Grandma would always put it to her lip, which I often do too, because it's tender and you can really feel temperature changes there. But just with your finger, you can touch. There's still just a little bit of warmth, and that's how picky I am. I wanna feel no warmth. I'm just gonna put it back in for maybe another 5-10 minutes. Then we're gonna start cutting this off and getting beautiful corn. That is delicious, by the way. If I don't eat all, I'm gonna eat all this, but we'll cut soon. So the corn is chilled. I tested it, it's good. So now comes the cutting off. This is what the grandmas always did. Both my grandmas would always cut it off. And then I eventually started cutting it off. And it always freaks everyone out. This is how my grandmas did it. This is how I learned to do it. You're gonna think I'm gonna kill myself. I'm not. I cut towards me. You can DM me all you want. You can tell me how awful this is. Go ahead, I don't care. This is how I cut and I'm comfortable with it. So I cut towards myself, sharp knife, and you just cut it off, push it off, turn, cut. Now, there are corn cutters out there. I haven't really tried them. I hear some of them actually work well. Do that. Do whatever you feel comfortable with. I know some people that will take this, set it up right, and just cut it down. That works great too. Whatever you are quick with and whatever you feel safe with, do. This is how I feel safe, you guys. And no, I have never, ever, ever cut myself. Now, number 2. If you want the best flavor, I'm giving you the weird Midwestern tips and secrets here that seem kind of gross, but this is why it's gonna taste good. All of this that's inside of the cob still is called milk, kind of, and it has all these little fines. Both grandmas would always say, you have to get those out, because you know what? There is so much flavor in there. Now, you're gonna say, isn't that gonna make it look gross? No, it really doesn't. Once you start packaging it up, you don't even notice it, but this is what gets you to have all of the good corn goodness and flavor in there. So it can take a while to maybe get the hang of it. If you haven't cut corn a lot and you're not used to it, you just wanna make sure you're not getting down into the cob, because then that will make it kind of hard and you'll get some of that, just something that isn't really good to chew on in there. So it kind of takes a little bit to find that sweet spot, but after you've done it, I don't know, however many years I've been doing it, and it doesn't even take that long. After a few cobs, you'll get it, and you'll just kind of go through, and it'll be no problem at all. I also know people that will not scrape it, and they'll use these cobs to make maybe a corn chowder or potato chowder. I also love to use them for ice cream. Soak these in with your milk. Delicious sweet corn ice cream, guys. So I'm gonna keep cutting these off. Then we are gonna package them up, and we're gonna have sweet corn all throughout the winter. Guys, look at this beautiful corn. This is not like what you buy in the store, even in the frozen section. No, not at all. This is a beautiful, tastes so good. It does not need, don't even tell me you put sugar on your corn. It does not need it. Maybe some salt. I love salt. All the corn is cut off. Look at all those beautiful sheets. So obviously at this point you can break it up, which we will here in a minute, but the important thing is where to store it. So I a lot of times will put it into reusable containers of some type. I like it in 2-cup increments. probably just because that's what I grew up with. A lot of people like 3-cup increments. It's kind of whatever you want, but these are pint bags. And this is what I a lot of times will do if I am giving any to people or if I just want a quick way to do it. Important thing, I like to put the year on it, just in case you find it in the freezer and forget about a bag, you know when it's from. And I like to do this before I fill them. Because once you fill them, they can get some condensation on them, they can start getting wet, sticky, and it's not easy to label them. So we're gonna do a few. I never know, so big thing here. I never know for sure how much I'm gonna get. It's kind of impossible to know. Each ear of corn is gonna be a different size. They're gonna have a different amount on them. They may not be completely full. Bigger kernels, you just don't know. So you kind of just have to go with an amount, cook, kind of learn from that. We used to always say if you picked a whole 5-gallon bucket full of unhusked corn, you'd get roughly 7 pints. Don't worry about that. Maybe you're getting a dozen ears at the local market and you just want to save a little bag for later in the summer or later in the winter. Great, you can do whatever amount you want. I fold back my bags too, because that way, when you go to close them, you don't get all the extra corn outside. It just makes it nicer. So if you kind of do a little bit of this beforehand, fold them back, have them ready. It's just a little bit cleaner process. It's easier. Guys, prep is what makes all of the difference, right? I mean, when we think about it, but I don't always think about it. So I'm gonna break up some of this corn just because it's gonna obviously go in and store easier. I have it in big sheets just because that's how I cut it. And I actually, growing up, I have the best memories of just taking some of this and eating it, which I know I've been doing this whole time, but it's just good. It's fresh. It tastes amazing. So I do it with a measuring cup. Do it however you want. Kind of fill it up. I like to be generous, just to know I have a good amount in there, obviously. We're gonna put it right in, and then I'm gonna do 2 of these because that's what I do. Okay, so I'm gonna do a few, and then once my hands are kind of cleaned up, because right now, when they're this corny, I know I hate to be a pun person, but when they're this dirty, I don't like to close them up because I like to keep the outside of the bag as clean as I can. So I have all these filled. I got what did I get here? I got 9 pint, which I had a little over a 5-gallon bucket, so it kind of makes sense. So when I'm going to do these, instead of just closing them all up haphazardly, not really paying attention, they just fit so much nicer in the freezer if you start kind of close most of it. See how I left just a little hole there? And then press, because you want them to be kind of flat, and then they just sit in your freezer so much better. And then you can get the air out, which obviously we all know air out is so much better for preserving. And that's the trick, you guys. So there's really no recipe you need to follow other than 5 minutes of cooking, put them in an ice bath. It's all just about the process. You cook them, you put them in ice, you get them really cold, cut them off. You can do as little or as much as you want. I think that's the best thing about this. Do a couple bags, put them in your fridge freezer if that's all you have. Think of how happy you're gonna be with that corn chowder or whatever you are making in the middle of winter. You're gonna love it. If you have extra left, cut a little bit off, freeze it. Hope you enjoyed this. This is my process, this works. It works amazing, actually. It will keep in your freezer at least a year. I shouldn't say we probably cut some longer, but let's say a year. And it's good. I hope you enjoy this. Tell me what other ones you want to see. I love showing you my preserving, my canning, my gardening, everything. It's fun because you guys are fun and I'm loving it. So I'm gonna keep doing this. I'm gonna put them away. I'm gonna put them in the freezer flat, let them freeze, and then move on to something else because there's always something else to do, right? Okay.